Yeah.
So I'll just mute you for a second. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's edition of Friday Focus. This is Friday, the 20th of September. Welcome to everyone, and if you're watching this later, thanks for taking the time to see. This morning, I think we've managed to sort out most of our technical difficulties that we were having last 2 weeks ago, and I welcome my guest for this morning, Peter Sircar, who runs the School Business Managers UK stream on LinkedIn and is a professional that's been in that space for some time. Let me bring him into the stage. Good morning, Peter.
Good
Nice to see
morning,
you.
Chris.
How are you this morning?
Brilliant. Excited. Looking forward to share my story.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll just say at the beginning, much of the focus, certainly within Smart Curriculum, has been on the curriculum design, and so a lot of the teachers are involved in that. As I was just saying to you, I mean, I've been involved in schools for 40 years and more, because my father was a teacher, and so I knew sort of around the schools. Have been most of my life. But schools are big organizations. They involve a lot of different people, and all of them are key to its operation. And so this edition of Friday Focus, called Positive Change in Operations, is about bringing someone who's in that other staff body that many people forget about in the school life. So, Peter, I'm really pleased that you've come to join me, because I want to get into this bigger conversation about everything that makes education possible. I will just say before we get into the conversation, if you're watching on LinkedIn, please, you can leave us a comment, and if it's something that we can answer during our session, please do put something in. And hi for those that are already said hi. It's really good of you to be here. Please like and share or comment on it. If you're watching on YouTube, again, subscribe to the channel Smart Curriculum Network. We won't be able to see your comments if you leave comments live, but I will get back to them after the session. So let's get into Friday Focus operations. Peter, just tell us a bit of your story. I've just indicated a little of mine. Tell us your journey to this point.
It's quite interesting, Chris. Actually, I never knew what school business management was. I studied in a school, but didn't know what went on there. I was training to be a passionate human rights lawyer. I joined a top ranked college and kind of passed with distinction, but then life had other plans. The circumstances changed drastically, and I chose a profession that I didn't know much about and was guided all the way. But strange thing is, I loved it every step of the way as I grew. So to support my studies in the final semester, I joined a brand new school that had come up in the finance office, and I was with them for the next 14 years. And over the next 14 years, they grew from one school to 100 schools. And I was overseeing 22 of them. And it was not just finance, I was overseeing finance, IT, procurement, adaptations of building. And what captured my imagination was I thought schooling was just about a 60-minute lesson in the classroom. It was not. It was creating a whole ecosystem, and it was developing relations with the students, with the staff, the community, and all the people involved, including the equipment, the ICT, and even the learning environment that we were delivering. It was not for a 60-minute lesson, it was for generations to come. And the impact that we were making on students, I mean, that really captured my imagination. And I fell in love with education management. So that was my first 14 years. It was with one of the largest, most dynamic network I've ever worked with because they developed their own hospitals for schools and traveling by air to different cities. I was overseeing schools in 5 cities was just like taking a local bus. So morning would be somewhere, afternoon somewhere else, evening somewhere else. Uh,
Well, that is a lifestyle. That's true sort of multi-site delivery. That sounds really exciting.
So, but I wasn't satisfied with just maintaining education. I wanted to create. So at that stage, I joined one of the most prestigious and the second oldest in the subcontinent. It was a grammar school, very prestigious. I joined them as their first business manager, was them with about 7 years, and that is the time I got into construction. So I was leading the construction of their first, most modern college complex with swimming pool, audiovisual rooms, facilities. They had international links with Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, so really state of the art. And again, it wasn't just the buildings. The interesting thing was in those days, we built the most advanced infrastructure of IT, connected three buildings. So one was listed, one was medieval construction, and the third campus was most modern. So connecting them together while maintaining their traditional personality was amazing. Developing processes, procedures, and most importantly, in the process, we were able to cut costs, and the feedback was amazing even from the community, the students. And at that stage I felt I worked for the largest, I worked for the most prestigious. I thought I was ready for the international stage, and I've been very strong on CPD. So by this time, I had done two bachelors, two MBAs, one in finance and HR, and number of leadership and management courses. So I put myself forward under the highly skilled migration program, came to UK in 2004, and my first assignment was with a voluntary aided school as a bursar. So far I had been a regional accountant, school accountant, business manager, and I come to UK and I joined as a bursar. The school was facing a deficit. It was a steep learning curve, and as I came, I wanted to localize myself. So I joined the DSBM course, which I paid for, and I was also accepted on the government sponsored course, which was a licentiate program for school business managers.
Right.
So I come into a new country, new role. I end up joining two courses and running them parallel to deliver. And by the end of 2 years, the school was in a break even position. Uh, and Everybody was very pleased. We were going to go ahead with the construction project, and I decided to test myself. An international bank had advertised for a finance director. I went to test myself and I was selected. So I became the first finance director of an academy that was going to construct the tallest school building in UK in the most underprivileged area of London. And we started in this international bank offices, moved to Porto Cabins for 1 year, and then moved to this customize a world-class seven-story school building which looked like a bank. And that was my second exposure to construction and kind of setting all the processes, procedures, systems, hiring staff, training staff, and setting up a team. So it was exhilarating, really exciting experience that I went through. Uh, Now I had done quite a bit by this time, and I wanted to do something new. So in between, I got into free schools, and that would have been an experience where you set up a school from scratch when nothing is there. So I joined a free school. It was just the head teacher and me. We started by engaging community in uh, local restaurants and public places, and I was with them for 6 years. So by the time I left, it was 550 students, three campuses, and really exciting place to work at. Then I moved to a MAT. It was one of the largest multi-academy trusts at that time, 43 schools. And here the challenge was very interesting. They had two academies on the same site, boys and girls, and challenge was to merge the cultures and bring them into one team and one sort of unit and unify them into one building. That was a very different challenge. It took time, it took a lot of resilience, it required stamina, uh, but we did it in the end. And my final exciting experience was with one of the faith schools. It's one of the most prestigious schools of London. They had legacy excellence. The school has been in presence for 150 years. They had excellence, but they desperately needed modernization. So I step in, and here the challenge was maintaining the legacy excellence as well as modernizing the thing. I was with them for about 3 years, managed to bring in a saving of 500,000, which was because they were using very traditional systems and we modernized them. It was from paper based collection going to go cardless. You can imagine what it was.
Mm.
Similarly, they had tokens for catering and then moving on to biometric system. So they changed the whole place. They brought in a lot of improvements savings. We got capital grants worth about 300,000, which helped uplift the building. And these were very different experiences. If you see the largest, most prestigious, the tallest, a free school starting from scratch, a MAT with 43 academies, and on to one of the most prestigious faith schools and building it from scratch up. So
Peter, that's a very varied experience, and you know I commend to people that depth of experience is valuable in the education profession. I could just say I met you first sitting in the New Schools Network building in the free school creation program. You were on the other side of the table. We were presenting a free school, and you were the financial expert. So that was probably now 10 years ago, but that's where I came across you in that first instance. God, so bring, but that's where you are up to date. What happens after that?
So right now I'm working for an academy in Hammersmith and Fulham, and responsible for finance, resources, state catering, the usual stuff. But what my learning so far has been, education is not just restricted to the classroom. And I think at this stage, I feel it is about building the future. It is about shaping the future and serving the generations to come. And it's not just the current batch of students that goes through, it delivers for the community, for the parents, for the nation, for generations to come. So, what we do today, we may think it is just a drop in the ocean, but that is a big drop. It will make a huge ripple. And key thing that I've learned why I also have fell in love with the schools is the people that you come across with. I mean, when I speak to teachers, that's a different insight, a different world altogether. Other day, I was speaking to somebody from DT, and the world they opened up to me was amazing. And in these 40 years, I had not been familiar to them. An SEN lady, she explained to me what the life of a blind student could be like, and it made me tearful. I could see the world from how a student who cannot see would see it. So it's an amazing, amazing experience to work for schools.
Yeah.
And I think the difference we make is huge.
It is, and but there's plenty of stuff that we're talking about and saying. But the truth is, we do create a legacy, and everyone. I had the privilege of doing a presentation to a group of local authority inspectors and school improvement advisors, and I asked them the question. So, what do you remember of your school experience? And it was really
Mm,
interesting to hear what they were saying, because it wasn't just about. In fact, of 40 in the room, not one person talked about what was going on in the classroom. It was all of the other things around school and what was possible and what was facilitated. Just want to come back to it. So your experience, you're very qualified. You put a lot of effort into um, being prepared, whether it was for this profession or for the one that you thought you were going to go into previously.
yeah,
A lot of head teachers and school leadership teams find themselves with people who are not as qualified as yourself, that have not been through that journey. And I know, and I just want to feature your school business managers program, your feed gives an awful lot of information on that. So what is it about? What can you do? What's available out there? Um, and because there are a lot of people that come in, particularly in the primary field, where the business manager is someone who's had a little bit of experience in finance, and that's not to denigrate anyone. It's just that's the kind of process that's coming. Your experience is way beyond that, and you've captured that very, very succinctly for us, Peter. And have you any comment on that journey? Because a lot of you must meet a lot of other business leaders in schools that
yeah.
have are in that experience.
No, definitely. I mean, after two MBAs and two bachelors, I thought I had it all. Uh, but I realized no, there is a lot more I need to learn, and that's why I set up this network, because the support, the advice I needed was not there readily available. And when I set it up about 3 years back, I took it over from a colleague. There were just about 100 members. Now it's 8,800. So there's a dire need for support, for networking, and for complementary skills.
Yeah,
And there's so much to learn from each other.
yeah,
And I think this is what is lacking. We need to have stronger networks whereby we can support each other, and I'm getting a lot of teachers, head teachers joining the forum as well. So the need is wider than just school business management. And the need is to bring them together,
yeah.
not just having one for school business managers, one for head teachers, and one for other support staff.
There's certainly a need for skill development and understanding
Yeah,
development. I'll just in a moment we'll go into that, your reflections in that area. But I certainly I've spent a long time saying we need to join up the conversations,
yeah,
particularly in the metric driven world, that you can't have the school business managers and the finance team and the HR team doing their stuff in an office and never talking to the teachers
yeah.
and the education leaders, because their whole process, it's all about one organization, and we need to join the conversations. And that really, Peter, is why I asked you to come and talk, because I think it's that valuable. I think
Mm,
so you talked about the independent sector and some of the international work you've done. It seems to that it's understood and operated in that world more easily than it is perhaps in some of the state sector schools that I see, certainly. But I just commend people to Peter's um, channel, join the network, and if you haven't done so already, because there's some really valuable stuff there. Peter, I'd just like to move on. Thank you for describing your journey. That's really fascinating. Move into what you wanted to kind of reflect with us. I'm going to put your presentation on the screen, if I can
yeah.
cast it, if I can just get it to do that. There we go. That's
Mm,
so your your reflection. So, talk us through. Tell us about what change you reflect is needed in the current circumstances.
Yeah, so I've got lots to cover, so you can slow me down if you want to. But I wanted to capture the essence of school business management. What does it cover? And I think the four qualities or characteristics, or as I call them, superpowers that come to mind are integrity, uh, balance, which is work life balance, which is very important, composure, and finally, innovation, which is the buzzword for the future. And integrity is a word that we throw around quite a bit, but its impact on an individual or a school business manager and the whole community is can be much bigger than we realize. Balance, which is work-life balance, and that is very important from well-being point of view. How we maintain our well-being, that is important. And school business managers are constantly juggling. And the three types of tasks that we have in schools are hot, red hot, and do it now. So these are the three categories they are operating in. So they have to be calm, composed, how they operate. And innovation is the word because we have to rely on machines. Machines are changing the way we work, the way we go about things, and a lot of mundane and routine functions can be passed on to machines. And that can change the future, that can shape the future. Uh, yes, great. So just like touching upon foundation of trust. Now, for me, that has been uh, sort of non-negotiable, and it's not just a word. If you see like any small decision a school business manager makes in a school, or whether that impacts on a department or a whole school, it is an important decision. And integrity is paramount when they make their decisions because if they try and cut corners, then the reputation is impacted. And school sector is just like a fishbowl. The reputation travels faster than the morning news. So by the time you've made the decision, its impact has come, everybody would know about it. So for me, the foundation of trust is integrity. When you are working in a school, integrity is important. Second one is ethical decision making. You're constantly working under tight budgets, tough conditions, and you have to make tough decisions. How do you make the right decision? Again, for me, the compass has always been integrity. I want to make sure that it's always the students and the school that they are benefiting, not on a smaller scale, because whole is better than the part. And that has to be there. Your sort of pillar of ethical decision making. And talking about integrity is not important. It is implementing it. It is living it. The other day, I'll just share an experience. Like I was going and there were two or three pieces of paper on the floor. I picked up two of them, put them in the bin close by, and three students following me, they picked up the remaining ones and put there. So people are watching, parents are watching, students are watching, and your acts of integrity and your actions, they inspire others. So we have to be mindful of them. Another key one is ethical problem solving. Now, whenever we look at a problem, there is always the temptation. Can we cut corners? Can we do them differently? Nobody would notice. But again, we have to look at the longer term. We have to look at what is right and make the decisions that are right for the whole school and the student community. We are constantly operating under pressured situations. At times, it is pressure cooker. It is like exam condition. You have to make a quick decision, the right decision, and we must always resist the urge to cut corners or make a wrong decision or make a quick decision that later on we may regret. So make the right decision uh, because I believe, as Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. And school business managers, they operate in roles of trust and responsibility. and they have to resist pressure and make the right decision. Finally, as I touched upon, we have to lead by example. So, whatever we do, others are watching, others will follow. We need to inspire others, even if they are very small acts, like I mentioned, picking up the paper and putting it in the bin, or not using mobile in the corridors, or uh, addressing someone in a polite and courteous manner. So, all these make a difference because people follow you by example.
Peter, can I just as that that's some really I've got several questions out of that, and we won't have
Yeah.
time for all of them. But the question of juggling pressure, that sense of
Yeah.
resisting pressure. You
Yeah.
said, school business leaders, education leaders are all battling with a finite resource, and
Yeah.
quite often that finite resource is going to be pulled in a number of directions. When you talk about resisting pressure, how does that work in your experience? That when there are conflicting demands, how do you handle that?
No, I mean, this is where, because I believe the head teacher and the academic colleagues, they've got the academic wisdom, but the school business managers, they provide the technical know-how. And it is just blending the two. So it is not just a one. So I believe we can help them make an informed decision, making them aware of the risks of each action and like what could happen if we take a particular direction. So I put a menu of choices, make them aware of the risks that are there, and my role is advisory and directing them in the right direction and guiding them and making sure they follow those guidelines so that we are fully compliant with law and the directives of the ESFA or in future the DFE.
That's an interesting distinction between giving advice and making decisions, isn't it? That's quite an important distinction between. I mean, there are people, obviously, there are people that are paid and charged to make that decision. I just want to highlight another thing you just said there, because it was just one of those those throwaway things. So much is being said at the moment about mobile phones in schools, and you
Mm.
just very simply, it came out of you that the appropriate place to use a phone and leading by example.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that that's the way forward. I'm not sure that banning is entirely the way forward, but leading by example and showing, and we do that in all sorts of ways. What's appropriate, what's got place, and how do we get young people to understand that if we don't teach them that? But that's a bit of a, a bugbear for me. But anyway, let's move on for this. So get your you talk about what you just presented about learning from real life examples.
Yeah.
Um, what
Now,
what? Sorry, go on.
sorry. Go on, Chris.
I was just going to ask you. You refer to what have you witnessed in similar in other schools? Is that something that you've featured in your learning? What observing what's going on in other organisations?
No, I mean, a lot of it is observation rather than studying. And there are just two examples that come to mind. Like one of them was an expansion project. We'll use the bursar as her name was Sarah. And she was very passionate about the community, the building, the vision of the school. When the expansion started, budgets were tight. And as contractors would do, they wanted to cut corners. They came up with alternative options, but Sarah stood her ground. She wanted the school's vision. She would not compromise, would not cut corners, and she made sure the building was ready on time and within budget. And what did the school get? Huge reputational uplift. And everybody commended Sarah. And the school's profile went up. On the other hand, similar situation, we've got Tom, budgets were tight. He was going through a procurement process. Under pressure from vendors, he made a quick decision to go with a vendor. Audit took place and they identified a 30,000 unauthorized payment. Tom lost his job, school lost the reputation, and the community as a whole, the intake of student fell, of the school fell because of this reputational damage.
Hmm.
So integrity goes a long way, and that is why it is so important. We don't realize, but the ripple effect that it has is much wider.
And as you say, I mean, we are in the state sector. We're talking about public money, and you're a guardian of public funds, and that's such important. That's a very interesting story. Go carry on. You're going to move on to your next point, which I believe is
Yeah,
balance. So if I just
yeah.
bring that back into the
Yeah. Now
so carry on.
this Yeah, this is something, Chris, I learned the hard way. So again, I started with somebody who thought, acted like a Superman, tried to be a Superman, wanted to do everything. But I very soon realized that there are things like burnout. I could stress out. I could lose my sharpness. And it is this experience that taught me the power of saying no. So at times, how to set boundaries, how to say no, and I developed certain strategies on how to maintain work life balance. Like some of them, I would like to share with our audience. Like, first, key one is to prioritize the tasks. As Chris also touched upon, you are under competing pressures. There are different aspects you need to deal with. You need to learn to prioritize. You need to set the boundaries, and you need to take regular breaks. So I used to otherwise work from join at 8 o'clock and even continue at 11 if need be. But now I've learned every hour or so, take a break, chat with a colleague, have a coffee, or do something different. And I thrive on diversity. That is why I do a bit of finance, take a break, come back, do a bit of health and safety, a round of the building, chat with some students. And I think that is what is required, work life balance. And please leave your work at work. Don't take it home. I had a colleague for a social evening, and constantly he was on his mobile. Oh, this thing is broken at school. Oh, I have to do this one. So please avoid all that. Time management, again, it deals with prioritization. And remember, you are not alone. Use your delegation power, uh, use your team power, and distribute the tasks if they are big enough. And to me, as I touched upon, continuous professional development has been very important. And I've got three key strategies. Number one, identify your gaps, your skill set where you're lacking, and fill those gaps. And where you cannot fill, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be effective. Outsource your weakness. This is what I've learned. So if I'm not good at carrying out payroll preparation, my colleague is very good. I won't compete with him. I will use the complementary power. I'll pass it on. I'll delegate it. And third key one is, please do not compete, because out there are other business managers who've got lots of complementary skills. So I've got a very strong network. If there's a problem, all I have to do is pick up the phone, speak to a fellow school business manager, and I'm much more insightful. So nowadays, the help if you join a network is on the press of a button. So no man is an island, and you nobody should try to be self-sufficient. And a key one is leverage technology, because machines can be our best friend. So especially the cloud-based system, the artificial intelligence, the automation, and we are even using tools to streamline accounts payable and receivable and bank reconciliation. They can change the way we work. A key final strategy that I've got is adapt to change, and not just wait for change to happen. Prepare for the change, anticipate change, and go for it beforehand. So prepare what could happen, how would you go about it, and that will release a lot of pressure because you're pre-prepared. So I've got a strategy. I always work 2 months in advance, because generally finance follows a cycle. So a lot of things I have them prepared beforehand, and when the time comes, I dust them up, tweak them, and present them with a fresh and updated format. So these are some of the things I think can make a difference. They will ensure work-life balance. They'll keep you sharper. They'll keep you more effective. and they'll keep you up to date. Now, I've got couple
Peter,
of
can I just say that that there's some valuable tips there for people that are coming into this that maybe not got the depth of experience, and I will concur with you. There are some things that you've just said there that we practice within smart curriculum, skills auditing and sharing work. That's my team that I develop, and certainly, so things like Strength Finder, that there are tools out there that you can identify the skills and strengths of people, and knowing that and developing team produces that collaboration, and is so important in team operation. But you're going to go on to give us some real life examples. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they actually summarize like what I've said. So we take an example of Emma. She joined a school which was quite demanding, but from day one, she set the boundary. She said, "I leave at 6 o'clock. I will not check my email after 7 o'clock. I'll take regular breaks. I'll go for exercise. I'll go for walks." Now, let's look at the result that summarize it. She was always positive. She was always supportive. Her judgments were very sharp, and she contributed positively in the senior leadership team meeting. Her decisions were well thought out, and that was because she had set up the work life balance. And she was always fresh, she was always energized, and she was always resilient. Now, against her, let's look at Rob. Rob always wanted to do everything himself, didn't want to delegate. The only person he trusted was himself, and he was always under pressure. And he didn't realize he was getting stressed. His judgments became erratic. He made some big mistakes, and as a result of that, he had to go on long term sick leave. So these two examples exemplify what can happen. So it is when you don't take care of yourself, you're not just impacting yourself. You are impacting the wider school and the community, and the impact can be far reaching. So again, if we take a strategic view, it is not just you who is affected. It could be 1,000 students that you're delivering to. They may be at the receiving end. So I would say, whatever you do, take care of your health, maintain work life balance.
And that's true of everybody within the school organisation, and true of anybody anywhere. Just going to take a moment to say, if you're watching, please comment, like and share. We really appreciate Peter's input this morning, talking about operations within schools. But what we're talking about is making positive change. Actually, a lot of what Peter's talking about is making the change not to the system itself, but to the people that are operating it, and be the best person that you can be within that. So please do comment, like and share. If you're on YouTube, do the same. We'd love to have your subscription and follow. But we'll keep going. Peter, as ever, like every good teacher who prepared an awful lot of material, if we need to go over a little bit just to make sure we cover your detail, we can do that, because we're not limited by time. But just be
No, no,
concerned to keep going. So your next point is about holding composure. So
no,
go
no.
go through.
No, this is sort of one of the most important qualities, and I think this is something I thrive on. And I normally get the comment, "How come you remain so cool in situation?" So, especially nowadays, you're constantly faced with budgeting challenges. There are building projects going on. You are faced with staff who may be upset. How do you deal with that? When I was younger, I used to get very upset. I used to get excited. It took me a long time. But over a period of time, I learned like if the school business manager loses their cool, then other people around them absorb that very quickly. So you have to be very calm, composed, make rational decisions, be a rational thinker, and be a very strong sort of uh, in terms of emotional intelligence. It is not personal. It is what you're delivering, the vision you're following, and you're trying to deliver that. Now, key thing to achieve that is strong organizational skills. So I think that always helps. So you have to be very organized. I use digital calendars, I use schedules, I'm constantly making do it lists, I prioritize things. So when you are organizing better, and I've got my full month's diary, prepare it on a weekly basis and follow it on a daily basis. Because I believe the only way to eat an elephant is bite by bite. And that is what you have to do. Prepare a full strategy and then start chipping at it one bite at a time. Second thing, I cannot underestimate or overestimate the power of building a supportive network. It is one of the most important resource that you will ever have. Build a supportive resource. Like I've got people in my network who specialize in HR, health and safety. They are specialists in finance. And all I have to do is, if I'm faced with a problem, pick up the phone or send an email, and within minutes, I've got the required information. And similarly, if anybody needs me, I'm very happy to provide that information. So you have to use the power of network. You are not alone. You're not an island. You are not just relying on yourself. You've got a very supportive community and network out there that are always willing to help. So at times I've sent emails to people I didn't even know about, but they had gone through a particular process that I was going to go through. They were most helpful. They would come back to you with help, and you would be amazed how much people are willing to help you. Sorry, Chris, I cannot see the next point. So, of course, establish clear boundaries. So, this is very, very important to stay organized. You have to learn to say no. Set boundaries. This is what you can do. This is what you cannot do. And at times, I've had to cut meetings short by telling them, now I need to attend to budget. Can we speed it up? Can we set up another meeting? So, boundaries are important because your priorities are important, and your priorities drive the school that you're working for. And this is my pet word, embrace problem solving. I don't see problems. When I look at a challenge or a problem, I see possibilities, I see probabilities, and I see opportunities. I think the best way to deal with a problem or a challenge is I first see whether I can go over it, do I need to go under it, on the sides of it, or through it. And once you know how you're going to deal with the problem or a challenge, divide your action plan into chunks and start chipping at it. I've dealt with problems that have taken weeks, that have taken months, but in the end, problems are there to be solved. So don't be afraid of problems. Problems are there to be solved. And they are fascinating, wonderful, really amazing problems you come across in the education sector. But there is nothing that you cannot deal with.
Peter,
There were
can I just chip in that your I mean that's a brilliant evaluation, and I think that applies to any person working in but certainly within the education world, building a supportive network. And I've said to educators many times, subject associations and group associations are out there for the benefit of you. You're not an island, you're not on your own, so being part of a network is really important. But I love that. I mean, problem solving is in my blood, and it's that sense. But you're so right in that holding composure is your greatest asset. I remember walking into school one day and presented by this panicking group of people with 1 million gallons of water that had the tank on top of the building had burst, and it had filled the whole of a block with it was 1 million gallons of water. But standing in the middle of it, my job was to get it working so that we could get the children into a position that was safe and get them learning again. And it was tough, but I get you're absolutely right. Holding composure at that point, it's not panicking. I'm gonna need to push you on a little bit. So, is there a
yeah.
particular a swift example that you wanted to bring in, or
Uh, Two very quick one, very similar. Budget cuts are the talk of the day. Sarah, again, we take her example. Uh, all of a sudden, her school lost 20% of the funding. There was panic. People were talking of redundancies. She kept her composure. She communicated with the trustees as well as the staff who were fearing redundancy. She was able to identify pockets of savings. She was able to generate funding. And at the end of the day, she was able to present a break even budget, and there were no redundancies, and school continued. Again, we come back to Tom, a similar situation. He got stressed, he got under pressure, he made mistakes in budgeting. The school showed a huge deficit, uh, and inspection and audit had to be called in. Tom lost his job. So this shows the power of composure. So it's not just in daily sort of dealings. It is when the crisis hits you, how you maintain your calm and composure and how you deal with the situation. So my keyword would be, please, whatever happens, remain composed. You're much better dealing with the situation if you're composed.
So I'm going to push you on into. I'd say you've referred to quite a lot the use of innovation and use of technology, particularly in your second piece. So let's that's your last area. Let talk through.
Yeah, I briefly touched upon adapting to change. I mean, the education landscape is changing rapidly, and the only way to deal with it is school business managers need to evolve. And the way to evolve is to be cope with the technological changes and be prepared for them. Now, I carried out a rough survey, did some research, and according to me, lot of schools, majority of schools, they are using legacy systems. And over the next 3 to 5 years, at least 40% of these schools, if not more, will move on to modern systems that provide data analytics, that are cloud-based, that can integrate, that allowed seamlessness for accounts payable and receivable. So the only way to deal with it is not to survive in the situation, but to thrive and to prepare for all these things. Now, the problem in the education sector is we've got an old generation of school business managers that would be moving out. They are reluctant to learn these new tools. And as Chris touched upon, we've got a new breed coming in, and they are not fully familiar with all the tools. So here it is very important as we move, we have to focus on CPD, we have to focus on technological improvement because lot of mundane tasks they can be passed on to these tools and we can start using these tools to deliver. Second one was lack of expertise to deal with this, their gaps. And what we need to do is build into our ecosystem how we are going to prepare the people for these technological changes. Even like I was using Copilot the other day, it can do amazing things. It requires training. People are fearful of technological changes, so they need to be trained. All those gaps need to be filled. When we talk about support staff and staff CPD, technological changes, AI, work life balance, and how we can use machines and technology to deliver, they have to be built into it. Third key one, which I am personally experiencing, is automation. You can do remarkable things where invoice entering is concerned, capturing is concerned, how you post them into the system, how you carry out reconciliation, how you provide information to budget holders. All of this can be seamless and it can be a seamless flow between the school business managers and the finance departments and the academic departments. Now, again, he is not to be fearful of these things. Step up and prepare for these and deliver in these areas. Because if all these routine tasks are taken care of, then school business managers can be much more decisive, they can be much more effective, and they can take a strategic direction and take it forward there. There are certain strategies, very quickly, I'll go over them. We can develop, first of all, embrace technology and digital solutions. There are lots of these coming in. We have to keep up with them. There are no shortcuts here. We have to develop strategic partnerships. We can develop strategic partnerships with computer companies, with businesses, or with other schools. So, any type of strategic partnership in a particular direction would take us in a big way. Professional development is very, very important, as I've touched upon. And nowadays, it is not those long, short degrees. What you have to go on is for series of bite-sized learning, what is relevant, what is the requirement of the time, and focus on that. Because most important thing is at the end of the day, it's about value creation. It's not just going from point A to point B. So we are value creators and you have to create value. And these are some of the ways personally experienced by me how you can create values. I would very quickly like to sum up by touching on two things. In fact, three examples with three different outcomes. We take Sarah's example. She was always first to try any technology. She was ahead of the curve. She used different technologies, used cloud-based integration, data analytics, built all the patterns for budgeting, and her school always was break even and projects break even for the next 3 to 5 years. There's Tom. He took another way. He went for strategic partnerships with computer companies, even with businesses. He got work experience for his students, robotics labs set up, and with other schools. So he worked closely on procurement with other schools. This was another way, another with very positive outcome. Then we've got traditional person who was Emma. She didn't want to take any risk. She wanted to rely on paper-based one, and slowly and gradually the workload became much more. She started making mistakes. She was always behind schedule, and in the end, she had to leave her job because the school needed to modernize. The school needed to move on because everything around the school was changing, but school was still set in its tradition. Uh, that epitomizes what is the importance of technology and what would be the impact on school business managers and the wider community.
Really fascinated by your inclusion of that, and certainly, I mean, I commented in many places on the use of AI, and I'm a Gemini, ChatGTP. It's changed our ability to do certain things. Certainly, writing documents, writing policies, writing. It gives you a framework to begin with that takes seconds rather than hours of consideration. And I'm really intrigued by your use of Copilot within Microsoft. Is I mean, there's lots that it's an aid, not a replacement.
Yeah.
It helps us do things. So that agility that you're talking about, that ability to use the technology that's out there to complement the job, actually will support all of the things that you've talked about in improving our work-life balance, because we can get things done swifter, quicker. But AI is never going to replace the fact you need to read it and make sense of it, because we're not at that stage yet where you can just rely on it and walk away. It's got to be, the human touch is absolutely important. So, Peter, you've got the sort of. I've got to put on the screen your summary, the gist of today's, and just talk us through the kind of main points that you've covered.
Now, key message from me is the landscape is constantly changing, and we are moving from standalone schools to MATs, and plus the student intake is challenging. The pay challenges are there. So we are performing in a ever-changing educational environment, and the best way to deal with it is to embrace these changes, prepare for these changes, and we can drive continuous improvement and ensure that schools remain competitive. And that can only happen if we are competitive, if we are prepared. And the key is to cultivate a mindset of evolution. So we are not, I am not what I was 40 years back. And similarly, you will not be what you are today in 5 years' time. Everything would have changed. And in order to be effective and to continue to perform effectively, I would suggest we continue to use these four superpowers, which are integrity, balance, composure, and not to leave behind innovation. Uh, this is just to recap what we went through. So I would say these should be your cornerstones for every school business managers, and I cannot underestimate the power of work-life balance. So if you maintain work-life balance, you would be a better performer, and your school, students, and community will benefit.
Peter, I just thank you for your the simplicity of what you've put together, given us some really thought-provoking ideas. Every guest I've asked a simple question in the at the end, and it really is, if this making positive changes. If there was one thing, if you prioritize one thing, so a listener that's observing what you've gone through here, what one thing would you want them to do immediately, or what would you say is the key to? I mean, the truth is all four of those are important, but if there was one thing that would make a real positive change in the education environment, what would you see it as?
Mm. In my head, there's only one magic potion, and that is preparation. So if you are well prepared, you can deal with any situation. And the way to prepare is to anticipate the future and prepare for it. And that gives you the power to shape the future. Because if you are unprepared, you cannot deal with anything. And we do know what the challenges are there, how we can prepare, and what would be the best way to prepare for them. And I would say for me, the magic has been in preparation. Prepare and you will not fail. Prepare to succeed.
That's a really interesting um, evaluation. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but actually, when when you consider when we consider all the things that you've said, you talked about holding your diary and that kind of step over time. So you're operating daily, but you've considered weekly and monthly. I'd have to say I'd do the same, and that's my team are managing the diary. Um, but that's so being prepared is such a key. It's not just stumbling into things, but just
No.
thinking ahead and being aware of it. But our way on the podcast, um, Peter, has been to recommend books as we go. Is there any particular resource? I mean, obviously, actually, so I should say, how do people join your network? What are they joining? What are they looking for?
Yeah. I mean, network, I would say, like it is something that everybody should join. And the reason being, number one, why should they join? It is free. Number two, it offers you a community feeling and a lot of support. It provides you the latest news and updates. There are job opportunities on the forum that we sort of circulate for our and people who've got a particular view or thought, they can write blogs, they can guest blog, which others can learn from, and they can advise others, they can mentor others if they want, they can volunteer. So I am passionate about this. I can go on and on, but there is so much more that you can do. And again, collectively, I think we can develop a voice because a network provides a voice. And that is what I'm trying to do, align with other sectors like head teachers and sort of create a unified voice uh, that can be heard on the wider forums.
And that comes back to what we said at the beginning, that idea
Yeah,
of joining up the conversation. So, School Business Managers UK, brackets around the UK,
yeah,
is Peter's network. I commend that to you. And in fact, actually, reading one of Peter's blogs was what actually generated my thought of inviting him onto the Friday Focus as a guest. It was because you were talking about the need for change and that what change is coming.
yeah,
I am going to recommend a book. It's not one I've got deeply into, but the School Business Manager's Handbook is by Hayley Dunn and is in partnership with ASCL. We are an ASCL PD um, associate, and we work with ASCL PD, the professional development wing. And so I just thought this book was one. If you are in that mode where you want to touch stuff, get into the network, because actually, as Peter's just said, that's free. and it will get you access to some of these resources. But if you're motivated in finding a book and be gathering knowledge, I commend this one to you. Peter, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you from me for the preparation time you put into that. It's been really valuable. The post will stay live on LinkedIn and YouTube, so people can watch and revisit. And I just commend getting in touch with Peter if you are minded, or if you're in that field, or you want to just learn more. I say, school leaders, consider it, because we need to join up this conversation. We need to understand operations against education. But thank you for watching and being involved this morning. Smart Curriculum Network, our network, is there for you to join, and very focused on curriculum and school life and the lived experience of our schooling. And there's lots of change going on at the moment. Please like, share, subscribe. The buttons are sort of wherever they are down there. Please do so. Next session, our next guest in a couple of weeks' time will be Sukhwinder Bassi, who will join us after his technical difficulties last time, and to talk about the whole area of people. So please do join us on the 4th of October. That's when we'll be back here next. Again, Peter, thank you. Appreciate
No,
your
thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, audience.
and we'll speak soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Sure. Take care. Bye.